That fella couldn't do anything. He couldn't even kneel to pray. And he got saved. Are you saved? That fella couldn't join the church. He couldn't join the church. He couldn't get baptized. He couldn't get baptized. He woke up with God. He woke up with the devil. Are you saved? So that fella didn't take the sacraments, didn't take the sacraments. Didn't say the rosary, didn't take the rosary. Didn't tithe, didn't tithe. He went to heaven, he went to hell. You saved? Didn't keep the law, he didn't keep the law. He broke the commandments, he broke the commandments. He didn't keep the golden rule, he didn't keep the golden rule. He woke up in glory, he woke up in the pit. Are you saved? You're saved. If you're not saved, you're over here or you're over here. You sure ain't in the middle. He said, Lord, remember me, thou comest thy kingdom. And Jesus turned to him and said, verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be saved. It's like that. You have been saved? If you ever saved, you were saved like that.
All right. In this video, I want to talk about the problem with men. And to be more specific, I want to talk about narcissistic men. I hope I spelled that right. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because a lot of women have to deal with these kind of men. And it's tough. It's tough because they get into these relationships with them. They even get married and they have children. And then they kind of, are at times stuck with these people. And it's miserable for them. And it's tough to deal with it and to try to get away from such a thing because it's very subtle. It's very passive aggressive. It's not open and blatant, especially to anybody who's outside of the relationship or outside of the home. They don't know what's going on. And it's hard to explain because you start talking about it and then it's just like, oh, you're just making a mountain out of a molehill. And it's like, no, because sometimes when something is even small and insignificant like a molehill, it's kind of like being poked. It's not a big deal. But if somebody keeps poking you, it's like, hey, stop. But then they keep poking you. Eventually, it's just little pokes. It's not a big deal. So stop it. And then they just keep little pokes. Anybody, eventually, some will last longer than others. You're going to snap and lash out. Because if you're trying to just tell them to stop, they're not stopping, they keep doing it. Eventually, you step it up. And you'll say what you need to say and do what you need to do to get them to stop poking you. And everybody may look at you as the crazy one, right? Because they don't see all the little pokes that led to you lashing out. And, there's a lot of women who are also narcissistic. But I want to focus on the men here because we as men, we have to step up in multiple ways, right? We have to make sure we're doing our part before we can complain, right? And the things we can do on our part is, first of all, to man up and take responsibility and be good fathers and examples to our children and the way we treat our wives to show how we want our sons to treat our wife, their mother, and how we treat our daughters so they can also see how they ought to treat women as well, right? And not only that, we should be more selective on who we are going to date and marry, right? Because there's a lot of women who are crazy, right? And they're narcissistic as well. So men have to step up and, if need be, stay single. Because if they can't find a woman they need to look at not only to be somebody they can get along with and they're attracted to, but they also have to be somebody that they can see as being a wife and a mother, right? So you need to be a little bit more selective on who you're going to be with and not just go after the momentary feelings of butterflies and you think you're in love. Love is a choice, something you choose to do, and you can love anybody if you make the choice to do so. Just some people are easier to love than others because of either them being attractive or charismatic or whatever, but it's still a choice. And that's what you got to learn and have to work that out in your relationships, right? But the main thing I want to focus on here is that the biggest factor in all this with these men in relationships and why they are the way they are is actually because of mothers. And I know women aren't going to want to hear that, but this is the biggest factor, right? It's how these young fellas are raised by their mothers, because the father has an influence on the child, no doubt about it. And he needs to set an example for his son. Yet, there's a lot of times when the father wants to teach his son something or discipline his child, and the mother steps in and doesn't allow it and tries to fight back and defend the boy. And basically starts to teach the boy that he can do whatever he wants and there's no consequences for it. So he doesn't have to be ever held accountable for what they say and do. Right? The mothers overly pamper and spoil and allow their sons to get away with anything. Right? And they have that mindset even as the child gets up there, as if they can't do anything wrong. Everything they do, any stimulus they act on, any urge they act on, it's perfectly fine for them to do so. Matter of fact, if there's a problem with it, it's someone else's problem. It's someone else's fault, right? And the mother is the main issue in this, because how you treat your sons as a mother is how you're teaching your son to expect their wife to treat them. How their interaction with their wife is going to be. It's the same thing with fathers. You have to treat your daughter in a way that she's going to look for a man to be your husband in the same way that you're treating her. So if you're one of those fathers who's like, oh, I don't want a daughter, I always wanted a son, and you kind of just don't really care about your daughter, you don't give her a lot of time and attention, she's going to seek a guy who's very dismissive of her like that, who doesn't really give her a lot of attention. She's going to be attracted to that because subconsciously it reminds her of her father, and we're naturally looking for the same kind of mate that our mother looked for when we're a woman. And as a son, we do the same thing. We look for the same kind of woman subconsciously that's like our mother. I know it's weird and kind of gross to think about sometimes, but it's the truth. So a big reason why these men treat their wives in such a narcissistic way, and they don't care about being held accountable and they get all offended about it, is because of the mothers and the way the mothers treated them. So if you are raising your son in this manner, but then you're complaining about narcissistic men, you're part of the problem. You're creating the problem. You're creating another one of these type of men to go treat a woman the same way you were treated. So, yeah. Don't be a hypocrite, okay? Don't be a hypocrite. And if you want something different, then you need to raise your son differently than the way your spouse was raised, right? And the same thing if you're a father, right? Your wife is a certain way, and you don't want your daughter to be in the same kind of way. Well, you need to have that kind of relationship with her where she learns to respect the man she's with. Because if your wife doesn't respect you, then your daughter's probably going to treat you the same way. And if you put up with that, then your daughter's going to look for the same kind of pushover kind of man to be with. Right? You might not like the way things are because you kind of want your children to do as you say, not as you do. But 90% of what children learn is basically just copying their parents. Not necessarily listening to what they're saying, but following through with the things they actually do. Right? Because if you can do it, then they're like, well, yeah, I can grow up and be like you. Because ultimately that's what they want. They want to be like you. So you need to teach them by living it out yourself. And if you are living out a certain way that's teaching them that it's okay to be like this, then it's your fault. Right? And if you're teaching your children to live the same way that you're complaining about your spouse being, whether it's your husband or your wife, but you're basically teaching your child to basically grow up to be the same way, you have no right to complain. None whatsoever. So we all need to look in the mirror and take accountability, right? This is in no way excusing or enabling or dismissing narcissistic behavior and saying that it's okay and that there should be no consequences or punishments. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, all right, we know there's a problem. Let's do something about it. You know, hold the narcissistic behavior accountable, and let's not create another narcissist with our son or daughter. Right? Let's do that, because those are some things we can actually control, some things we can actually do, instead of just, you know, complaining about it. Let's do something about it, and that's one of those things. It's, you know, a lot of people don't want to really face that, but that's how it is. And, you know, we want these people to take responsibility. Well, we got to take responsibility then, or else we're being hypocrites and we want them to do something that we're not going to do. You know, we shouldn't expect it then, right? Yeah. I guess with that being said, that's about it. I thought there was one more thing I wanted to add to this, so I'm going to take a moment to see if it pops back into my head. No, but it seems to have slipped my mind. Oh, yeah, I remember now. It was about forgiveness. You know, when we have a spouse that's narcissistic and they've treated us bad, they've cheated on us or whatever it may be, there's two types of forgiveness. There's a forgiveness you must do, and it's mainly to be able to move on and for yourself. And that's a forgiveness that I say is like an inward forgiveness, where you forgive them for their physical, mental abuse, their cheating on you, you know, whatever it was, you forgive them. But that doesn't mean you forgive them outwardly, as in they just get away with what they've done, where there's no consequence to it. The outward forgiveness is conditional, where, all right, I'm not going to treat you as if you're forgiven if, let's say, the person isn't accountable for the things they said and done. They don't admit what they've done. They don't admit that it was wrong. They don't try to even make amends and even come to you saying they're sorry and apologizing anyway. Then you don't openly, you know, forgive them, right? But you forgive them inwardly in the sense that you let it go because you don't want it to eat at you, because then they can just hold that over you, and since you don't get closure, it eats at you from the inside out. So you need to inwardly forgive them, but hold them accountable and even cut them out of your lives if you need to, if they're not going to take responsibility for it and just ignore it and be dismissive of it and not, you know, come to bring closure to say they're sorry or anything. If they're not going to do that, then let them go. And if they're like, oh, you got to forgive me kind of thing, you know, because, you know, I'm a Christian here and I preach a lot about Christianity, about forgiveness. Be like, yeah, you can forgive them, but doesn't mean you let them get away with it and just do it again. You know, that's not how forgiveness works, right? Because God doesn't forgive everybody. He forgives those who come to him and admit that they've done wrong and actually seek his forgiveness. Those are the ones he forgives, right? He doesn't just forgive everybody. He offers the forgiveness to anybody who would come to him and actually ask for it. But if you're not going to come to him admitting that you even need the forgiveness, you're not going to get it. So we as Christians, we should be the same way. If they come to us for wanting forgiveness, all right, let's forgive them, because God's forgiven us for all the things we've messed up and done, right? And we know we're not perfect. We've probably wronged and said some things we shouldn't have done to others, right? And done some things we shouldn't have done. So, if people really come for forgiveness, we should forgive them. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean there's no consequence. Like if somebody's stabbed you in the heart, stabbed you in the back, you can forgive them, but doesn't mean you trust them, right? Be like, yeah, I forgive you. I don't want retaliation, but I also don't want, I don't trust you. I can't trust you. Right? So that, there's consequences that that have to happen, even if there is forgiveness. All right? It's just how it is. But anyway, I hope I explained myself well. But yeah, that's that anyway. Your battery's about to die anyway, so thank you for your time. All right, it's the end of the video, and I figured I would do an ending segment to my video so I don't have to keep repeating myself. But I do want to remind you to do what Isaiah said to do and seek out the book of the Lord and read it, putting line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, doing what Paul said, and studying the word, showing yourself approved unto God, rightly dividing the word of truth. And if you read English, that would be the KJV. And then do what John has Jesus recorded telling the church of Philadelphia, and keep his word, preserve it, protect it, hide it in your hearts, and not deny his name. And then Jesus will never be able to tell you you do err not knowing the scriptures, and he'll keep you from the hour of temptation, which is going to come upon all those that dwell upon the earth here shortly. And with that being said, I'd like to ask you for your support. You watching the video all the way to the end helps out a lot, but if you could like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, share the video, share the channel, interact in the comments section. These things help out a lot, especially with people telling me that their likes are not being registered, that they get unsubscribed, and all kinds of other ways being shadow banned. Your help in this way was greatly appreciated. And if you're able to give me a little bit more time and pray to our Heavenly Father that he keeps this ministry going and he uses it to reach those who he wants to reach, to get the truth out to the world, to make it a bright light, and to feed his sheep, to feed his children, even to bring forth more children, and that he would watch over all of us, his born-again believers, and take care of us, provide for us, and protect us, even after he comes and gets us, which looks like it's going to be real soon. And just to amen in Jesus' name to that should be all we need. But if you could help out some more, I know times are rough and they look like they're getting rougher, but if you're able to support financially, there's a few ways you can do so in the info description box, such as PayPal, Venmo, and there's a couple other ways you can support if you so choose to do so, which would make sure I can keep this ministry going longer than the foreseeable future, because this kind of support has been drying up there. It's pretty much non-existent lately. So if you could help out in that way, it would be greatly appreciated to make sure I can keep doing this. But if you could at least pray, I know God will provide. And sometimes it's a change of ministry, so maybe it won't be a ministry online anymore. But hey, if you want to keep seeing this stuff, pray. And with all that being said, thank you so much again for your time and attention, for watching this video all the way through. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one, and may God bless you and yours.